guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Stacy. This is going to be my 5-star reads for the year of 2022. I had a bunch more books that I loved this year, last year. I'm not sure when this video is going up, but in 2022. But I wanted to not make this video be too long. I wanted to kind of narrow it down, so I only went with the things that I gave 5-star ratings to. Also, I am filming outside today because last week it was down in the teens with a super low wind chill. It was freezing. And today it is 67 degrees out here in Virginia, so it's beautiful, and I wanted to soak up some of the sun while we have it. Anyway, let's go ahead and get right into this video. So the first book that I gave 5 stars to was Safely Home by Randy Alcorn. This book is Christian fiction. It's contemporary, which is extra surprising because I don't generally like contemporary books unless they are survival stories or like apocalyptic type of thing. This isn't either of those. This is contemporary, but it's about Christian persecution in China. And it's about this friendship between an American man and a Chinese man. They went to college together. I want to say they were roommates in college. And then they went their own ways to their own countries. And the Chinese man is a Christian. And some things start happening to him in China because he's a Christian. And the American friend travels to China. And this was one of the most heartfelt, faith-filled, beautiful stories of redemption and salvation. It was just a gorgeous story. It made me sob, and I cannot recommend it highly enough, so that is why I gave it 5 stars. The next one I want to talk about is a whole series, and maybe y'all can guess because I talked about this series for several months. It took me a while to read it, and that is the Bright Empire series by Lawhead. Book 1 was called The Skin Map. And these books are Christian science fiction. I would classify these as science fiction because there is time travel, there's ley lines that are in different places around the earth, there's good guys, bad guys, there's adventures. The thing that I loved the most about this whole series was the characters. The characters were so great. They were so enjoyable. They were funny. They were compelling. They were all different. They were all from kind of different parts of the world, and I just fell in love with them. I fell in love with the historical aspects when they traveled back in time. It was just a fun adventure to read, and that is why I gave all of those books 5 stars. Next, I want to talk about Echo in Darkness, which is the second book in the, what is that trilogy called? It's the Francine Rivers trilogy, biblical fiction. For the life of me, I cannot think of the name of that trilogy. Mark of the Lion? Is it the Mark of the Lion? Somebody let me know. I guess I'll find out when I post the picture of this. It'll say it on there. Loved it. I think this book was even better than book 1. Book 1 has some of the most amazing faith content of any book I've ever read, and book 2 I think bumped it up even more. I don't know how Francine Rivers did it, but it was just perfection with levels of faith. It's a very tough, but a very important read, I would say. Next one I'm going to talk about is The Thief from Stephanie Landsem. This again is part of a trilogy, but all the books are separate, so you don't have to read them together. It's different stories. This one again is biblical fiction, and it's about a thief that lived during the time of Jesus. Stephanie Landsem has a way of storytelling like no other, and she rips your heart out and she makes you care so much for her characters. The whole trilogy is absolutely amazing, totally worth reading. Next, I want to talk about another Stephen Lawhead book that I read. This was called The Iron Lance. It is historical Christian fiction set during the times of the Crusades. I want to say the first crusade, so around year 1000-ish. Again, Stephen Lawhead knocks it out of the park with characters. There is a young Scottish lad in this book named Murdo, who I just love so much. His character was just so fun to read, and there were a set of monks that he hung out with while he was going on this crusade. Well, he wasn't actually going on the crusade. His father and his brothers went on the crusade, and while they were gone, their property got taken over, and so Murdo went to go find his father and his brothers and bring them back home to get their property back. So that's basically what the story is. But I learned so much history from reading this book. There was a bunch of things in here that I didn't know, and I ended up watching documentaries on the Crusades and trying to expand my knowledge on it, which I love when books make me go down rabbit holes. So yeah, I think Stephen Lawhead's writing is just spectacular. His characters are amazing, and I learned a lot. So that is why I gave this one 5 stars. Next one I want to talk about is The Hobbit by J.R.R. J.R.R. Tolkien. I have such a hard time saying his name. I think everybody knows what The Hobbit is. It is the book that basically comes before the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's where you get to meet Bilbo Baggins and you learn all about him. I love Bilbo Baggins. I think he is one of the best characters ever written. I share a birthday with Bilbo, and so that makes it even more special for me. But yeah, The Hobbit, I don't really know what to say about this, but it was just spectacular. I think everybody should read The Hobbit at some point in their life, whether you're a Christian or not. So yeah, that is why this book is 5 stars. Next, I'm going to talk about a book called Soon by Jenkins. This is book 1 of a trilogy, and I apologize, I can never remember the names of these trilogies that I read, but it's book 1, and it is not part of the Left Behind books. It is its own separate story. This is dystopian, post-apocalyptic. It takes place in the future after World War III. And Christianity has been outlawed, but there, of course, is an underground of Christians working around the world. And this man who was not brought up a Christian, obviously, because he lives in this world, he has something happen and he becomes blind. So it's kind of like a retelling of Paul's story, how Paul was persecuting Christians in the Bible and God blinded him for 3 days, and then he becomes a Christian. It's kind of following along those lines, but it's set in the future. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was fascinating. It's so fast-paced, like an adventure story, and it kept me on my toes, and it kept me wanting to turn the pages. I loved it, and I totally recommend it. That's why I gave that one 5 stars. Next, I want to talk about Sons of Blackbird Mountain by Joanna Bischoff. This was historical Christian fiction. This one is set in Virginia, in the mountains of Western Virginia. And it is about a young woman in Europe. I forget which country she's from, maybe Holland or Finland, Sweden, I don't know, one of those countries. And her husband dies, and her husband's aunt, who lives here in Virginia, writes her a letter and says, come stay with me and my nephews, and we will, take care of you, and you can live with us. And so she hops on a boat and she comes to America. I want to say this was in the 1800s maybe. So she immigrates to America, and when she gets here, she realizes that the nephews aren't children. She was thinking they were kids and that she would be helping out taking care of them, but they are grown men, and they own an apple orchard, and they make cider, and she gets involved in their lives. All kinds of things happen because this is like early America and crazy things are going on. But there is so much great faith content in this book, so much forgiveness, salvation, all the things. Again, I love the characters. So that is why I gave this book 5 stars. Next, I want to talk about The Hidden Prince by Tessa Afshar. I just read this one in November, I think. I just read this one recently. I love Tessa Afshar. She's probably my favorite biblical fiction author. I've loved every book that I've read of hers. This one is set during the time of when the Israelites were captive in Babylon. And Daniel is a part of this book, although he is not the main character. It follows a young woman who is a scribe for Daniel. and she gets in trouble and she has to be exiled out of Babylon, and she ends up taking care of a young boy who ends up being a very important person. This book made me cry. This book, again, the characters were written so well. There is a relationship that happens in this story, and I thought the relationship was done beautifully. So yeah, if you haven't read anything by Tessa Afshar, literally read anything of hers. I'm sure you will love it. All right, we are coming down to the wire. The next one I want to talk about is Castle Shade by Laurie R. King. I just read this one in December. This is a Sherlock story, but not written by Arthur Conan Doyle. This one takes place in a castle in Romania, and it is from the perspective of Sherlock's wife, Mary Russell. I loved the mystery. I loved the setting. I was truly there in Romania. It was such a fun story to read. And again, the character of Mary Russell is one of my favorites. She is very snarky, and I just love the way that she interacts with Sherlock. They have such a fun relationship, and it's totally believable. Sometimes I will go into these Sherlock stories with low expectations, but I have been pleasantly surprised by all of the, not retellings, but stories written by other authors about Sherlock. So yeah, this was definitely a 5-star read for me, and I cannot wait to read more books by Laurie R. King in this series. Next one is Once Upon a Wardrobe by Patti Callahan. Again, I read this in December. Blew me away. It was just the most lovely story I might have ever read. It was just lovely. I don't know how else to describe it, but beautiful. So well done. Characters, again, perfection. This had to do with a young boy who's dying, and he wants his sister to find C.S. Lewis and ask him where Narnia comes from. Just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I cried in this one too. Can you see that I cry kind of easily in books? I think maybe books that make me cry make me want to give them 5 stars because they just make me feel so much and I get emotional. But yeah, I definitely recommend that one. And the last one that I'm going to talk about, again, I read this in December. I just finished it, is Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys. This one, man, this might be the saddest book I've ever read in my life. I've read quite a bit of books that are set during World War I, World War II. I've read books that are set in concentration camps. This one might be the saddest. It starts out with this family being ripped from their home, like the very first chapter. They are being ripped from their home and everything they know, thrown into nasty trains and sent to Siberian work camps. Every page is worse than the last. The horrors that these people went through, like I couldn't make this stuff up, but somehow the Soviets came up with these horrific things and they did these things. This is all based off of true stories. It was horrific. Again, I sobbed like a baby. It made me feel so many things. It made me angry. It made me feel grateful. It made me feel sad. It just, like, all the things. And now I want to read all of Ruta Sepetys' books because apparently I like feeling all the things. I don't know. Those are all of my 5-star reads from 2022. Let me know if any of these were 5-star reads for you as well, or if you hated any of these books. That would be interesting too. Anyway, that is all I've got for this video. I hope y'all are having a great day, and I will see y'all soon. Bye.